First Amendment, Kneeling for the National Anthem, and Texas versus Johnson, 1989. From BusinessInsider.com and Procon.org. The current debate over kneeling or sitting in protest during the national anthem was ignited by Colin Kaepernick in 2016 and has escalated to become a nationally divisive issue. Former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick first refused to stand during the Star-Spangled Banner on August 26, 2016, to protest racial injustice and police brutality in the United States. These protests have generated controversy and sparked a public conversation about the protesters' messages and how they've chosen to deliver them. People who support refusing to stand for the national anthem argue that athletes are justified in using their celebrity status to bring attention to important issues, and that refusing to stand for the national anthem is an appropriate and effective method of peaceful protest. People who disagree argue that football games are an inappropriate place to engage in political protest, and that not standing for the national anthem shows disrespect for the country and those who proudly support it, some with their lives. Surprisingly, the idea to kneel came from an unexpected place. A former member of the U.S. Army Special Forces, Nate Boyer, advised Colin Kaepernick that kneeling during the national anthem would be a more respectful protest than remaining seated on the bench. He said in June he had no idea the gesture would become so controversial. Boyer, who served 6 years in the Army and also tried out for Seattle as a long snapper, met with Kaepernick in 2016 when the then San Francisco quarterback began his protest aimed at drawing attention to police brutality against minorities. The thought that ran through my head about kneeling were pictures in the history books of someone kneeling before the king to be knighted, someone proposing to their wife, taking a knee to pray in the Catholic Church, Boyer told Reuters. I just couldn't think in any way it could be construed as disrespectful. Many did find it disrespectful, however. U.S. President Donald Trump described it as unpatriotic, and in 2017, Vice President Mike Pence walked out of an NFL game when some of the players knelt on the sidelines. The issue had returned to the forefront in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. Boyer said he understands why many consider the playing of the anthem before sporting events as sacred. Those symbols mean a lot to me, Boyer said. But at the same time, I took an oath to defend the Constitution, which includes the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Pro. When one believes the United States is not living up to its ideals of freedom, liberty, and justice for all, kneeling during the national anthem is appropriate and justified. Colin Kaepernick said, I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. NASCAR official and Army veteran Kirk Price, who kneeled during the anthem at a June 2020 race, stated, I fully respect the flag. That's not what the issue is here. The issue is African Americans being oppressed for so long under the flag. But to be honest with you, I know what the flag stands for, and I know about black people being oppressed because I am one. When a national figure such as an NFL player kneels during the national anthem, it shocks people into paying attention and generates conversation. Many people were shocked and offended when Colin Kaepernick refused to stand for the Star-Spangled Banner, and the resulting debate continued as additional players joined the protest. Social media has given a voice to strong opinions on both sides, including members of the armed forces who expressed support for Kaepernick's right to protest by posting under the hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick. Kneeling during the national anthem is a legal form of peaceful protest, which is a First Amendment right. A letter signed by 35 U.S. veterans stated that far from disrespecting our troops, there is no finer form of appreciation for our sacrifice than for Americans to enthusiastically exercise their freedom of speech. Now let's look at the opposing argument. Kneeling during the national anthem shows disrespect for the flag and members of the armed forces. The national anthem pays respect to the people who have risked their lives, been injured, or died defending the United States. Carol Isham, a great-great-great-granddaughter of the writer of the national anthem, Francis Scott Key, said that it just blows my mind that someone like Kaepernick would do what he does to dishonor the flag of this country and the national anthem when we have young men and women overseas fighting for this country, people that have died for this country. On June 5, 2020, President Trump tweeted, "Old Glory is to be revered, cherished, and flown high. We should be standing up straight and tall, ideally with a salute or a hand on the heart. There are other things you can protest, but not our great American flag. No kneeling." Kneeling during the national anthem is an ineffective and counterproductive way to promote a cause. President Obama expressed concern that not standing for the national anthem can get in the way of the message. As a general matter, when it comes to the flag, the national anthem, and the meaning that holds for our men and women in uniform and those who fought for us, that is a tough thing for them to get past to then hear what Kaepernick's deeper concerns are. Malcolm Jenkins, safety for the Philadelphia Eagles, supported Kaepernick's message, but said, "My grandfather served in the military, and this is a country I love. So me not standing for the national anthem isn't really going to get me the results I want." Kneeling during the national anthem angers many and sows division in our country. Kaepernick and others who have refused to stand for the national anthem have caused division among their teams, their fans, and across the country. We are now going to look at a Supreme Court case, Texas versus Johnson, 1989. In the case of Texas versus Johnson, revolves around the 1984 Republican National Convention, which took place in Dallas, Texas. At this event, Gregory Lee Johnson engaged in a protest by setting fire to the American flag. Gregory Lee Johnson was a member of a private company that was made up of individuals who promoted the communist movement. Johnson lit fire to the flag at the convention to protest capitalism and the way the government was being run. When he started burning the flag, he was immediately taken into custody and arrested by the Dallas Police Department on the grounds that he had violated a state law that said it was illegal to destroy items or objects that are considered to be respected. For burning the American flag, Gregory Lee Johnson was fined a total of $2,000. In response to the fine, Gregory Lee Johnson appealed the decision and took his case to the United States Supreme Court. Texas versus Johnson, the case profile. Texas versus Johnson was heard on March 21st of 1989. Gregory Lee Johnson appealed the arrest and fine sparked by his flag-burning activities by stating that the Dallas Police Department had violated his First Amendment rights. As an American citizen, the First Amendment preserves and protects the right of speech and expression. In addition to the protections offered in the First Amendment, Gregory Lee Johnson believed that the state law was not appropriate because the government cannot define what a respected object is. Texas v. Johnson was decided on June 21st of 1989 by the United States Supreme Court. Texas v. Johnson, the verdict. The United States Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that Gregory Lee Johnson's civil liberties and constitutional liberties were indeed violated as a result of his arrest and fine. The United States Supreme Court in Texas v. Johnson claimed that the man's expression of burning the flag is protected in legal free speech, according to the United States Constitution. Johnson won the case because of the rights and liberties granted by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. This amendment awards American citizens the freedom to express themselves and say whatever they want, so long as their speech does not place an immediate threat to the well-being of the nation.